So hi everyone. Welcome SACNAS to our very first SACNAS Google Hangout. Thank you for tuning in. So today we'll be talking about the application process for travel scholarships and research presentations for the 2016 SACNAS conference. We have an amazing panel with us today who's going to lead our hangout. I'm just here to moderate and make sure things move along. My name is Kiara Kabilio, and I'm the SACNAS Communications and Marketing Coordinator. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our panel. First we have Eric Curiel. He's Program Associate, and he manages for the conference. And then we have Katarina Puraduk. She's also Program Associate, and she manages research presentations for the conference. Then we have our special guests. We're very lucky to have them. We have Christian Casares and Gabi Serato Marx. Christian is a postdoc at the University of Pennsylvania and is researching computational approach to studying epilepsy and cognition. Christian attended the conference in 2013. Then we have Gabi. She's a PhD student at MIT studying marine geology and geosciences, and she attended the conference in 2014 on a SACNAS travel scholarship. Both Christian and Gabi are past SACNAS travel scholarship recipients, and they presented their research. So it's just really, really great to have them here and have them share their experiences with us. Okay, so before we begin, just a few housekeeping items. Our first half will focus on Eric talking about the travel scholarship application. And then second, Katarina will talk about the application process for research presentations. Then Gabi and Christian will talk about their overall conference experience. And then we'll end the hangout by taking your questions. It says there's one viewer, so now it says there's 0 viewers. But for those of you who are on, by the time when we're all done, we will take your questions. So please, I want to remind you to submit your questions on the Q&A chat function of the Hangout. We will try to answer as many questions as we can, but for those questions that we do not get to, please ask them on social media using the hashtag SACNAS2016. All right, so let's jump in. Eric, do you want to tell us a little bit about the travel scholarship application process?
Yeah, so I'll quickly talk about just a quick overview of the travel scholarships, and then I'll switch gears and then have Gabi and Christian give their tips about the application itself. So we invest in you because you are the next generation of scientists and leaders, so we really hope that you take advantage of the opportunities, not just of the travel scholarships, but also of the research presentations. The travel scholarships cover conference registration, travel, and lodging costs to attend the 2016 SACNAS National Conference, which this year will be held in Long Beach, California, from October 13th through the 15th. These opportunities are available to students who are enrolled through fall 2016, which includes undergraduate, postbac, and graduate students, and as well as postdoctoral researchers. We do have 2 application periods. The first one is right around the corner. Applications are due next Friday, May 13th, but if you are not able to submit your application by then, we do have a summer application period which opens on June the 6th. You can access all of the travel scholarship information as well as the applications through our conference website, which is 2016sacnas.org. Once you're on the page, you can hover over the top menu and scroll down to the travel scholarship links. There you'll find more information about the eligibility, the guidelines, the deadlines, and the application links themselves. Do note that there are 2 applications, one specifically for students and the other one for postdocs, so please be sure to fill out the correct application. So yeah, now I'm going to move over to the actual important part, which is the tips. So one of the requirements that you need for the application is a statement of purpose. this is your opportunity to share with reviewers what your research interests are, what your career goals are, and what you will get out of the SACNAS conference. So Christian, would you mind talking a little bit about tips when students are drafting their app or their statement of purpose?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, you have 500 words to explain a couple of things. What I would do first is to, in my first paragraph, briefly describe your career and your research and career interests. So, for example, you want to write down like your version of the elevator pitch, like a 1 or 2 sentence summary of your research. And afterwards, when you describe your career interests, don't feel too alarmed if you're not sure yet where you see yourself, 10 years down the road. However, at this point, I'm sure you can at least mention whether you see yourself in academia, industry, or a nonprofit organization. For example, when I applied, I knew I was aiming to have my own research group. So I explicitly stated that for a potential future in academia, it would first involve me attending graduate school, followed by a postdoctoral position, and eventually applying for tenure track positions. I'm sure you can structure your answer similarly for whatever career you want to do. In the second paragraph, you want to answer what you hope to gain from attending the conference. So this could be several things, actually. So you're going to get valuable public speaking experience that will be beneficial to any sort of career you might throw yourself into. In addition, you're going to have the opportunity to network with future research collaborators within your own field or even outside of your field. And attending will also give you the opportunity to go to the exhibit hall, where you're going to learn about job, internship, and graduate school opportunities. And in addition, I also recommend looking over last year's SACNAS 2015 program. Look through it and make note of any sessions or panels that directly relate to your career, and even issues relevant to your own community. Mention how you look forward to attending similar sessions in the upcoming conference. And I believe that this sort of specificity is going to make your application stand out to the reviewers. In the third paragraph, you're going to tie this all up. So how do your career and academic goals align with the SACNAS mission? For me, it was a matter of stating how SACNAS' mission of promoting Hispanic and Native American success rates related to my own career goals. So for example, there's a serious lack of faculty members that identify themselves with our communities, leading to cultural barriers and a potential lack of empathy in mentorship relationships. So I'm sure some of you wish that there were more role models in science that came from your academic background. So word your answer accordingly. I wrote that by accomplishing the goal of getting a PhD and becoming a research faculty, I would be able to directly address this issue from a platform that would allow me to give back to the organization, like SACNAS, as a speaker or a poster judge, and most importantly, as a future mentor to the students who attend the conference. So in essence, you want to describe who you are and where you're going, what you want to get out of the conference, and how both the goals of the conference and your own career perfectly align. And do that in 500 words, and I'm sure you'll do great.
Awesome, thank you. And did you wait till the last day to write your statement of purpose, or how long did it take you to write it?
Of course not. I took, I think, like a week to write this up. But definitely you got to let your PI know about the letter of recommendation way beforehand.
Awesome. Gabby, did you have any additional tips as far as the statement of purpose goes?
I would just emphasize what Christian said right at the end, that someone asked in our previous link about how to write a statement of purpose if you've barely started your research. But I think what he said is really great, that you can emphasize how your career goals really link in well with SACNAS and why you want to go to SACNAS. Why not any other conference? Why not a conference that's just for your discipline? Why SACNAS? So I think emphasizing that can really strengthen it.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's really a good point. So one of the things I do want to emphasize is that the travel scholarship and the abstracts are two separate applications. So on the travel scholarship statement of purpose, don't emphasize too much about like what specifically your research is, but focus more on like what your research interests are and how it will impact your overall career objectives. So yeah, thank you. Those are really good points. So now I also want to focus on the letter of recommendation, which is the second important requirement that you'll need for the application. This is going to provide reviewers another aspect, or pretty much mentor's perspective of what your potential is. So Gabi, would you mind talking about how you selected a mentor to write your letter?
Sure. So I was coming directly from a summer research program in REU at CU Boulder called SMART. So I had a very small lab. It was me, my PI, and then 2 grad students, and that was it. So I had a really strong relationship with my PI. He was my direct supervisor and mentor. So I asked him to write my letter of recommendation for me. And I think I asked him in person first, and then also sent him the information in an email so that he would have that as needed. And for me, it was important to get it to him as early as possible because I knew I wanted to attend the conference, but I also knew he had just had a young daughter, so I knew that he was pretty busy at home. So trying to get him the information about sending in the letter of recommendation as early as possible was really important. And I think if I had given him really late notice on it, that I don't think it would have gotten done. So I'm glad I gave him enough notice.
Yeah, thank you. And that's a really good point because don't make the assumption of waiting till the very end before you start your application and say like, oh yeah, my mentor can write a letter in a day, because you never know how much work they need to do beyond what it may seem like they're working on. Christian, do you have any additional tips for the letter of recommendation?
Yeah, so not only do you want to emphasize to your PI that this is a research presentation, but what I would also do is, through person or an email, is briefly mention how SACNAS' mission of increased minority STEM participation is important to you personally and why it's relevant to your own career. And I think that you mentioning this is going to catch their attention, and it will also give your mentor more to write about in their letter, because the letter asks them to describe how you as a student would benefit from attending. And I feel like if you give them that information before they ask, it will just speed up the entire process. And yeah, like you want to give them plenty of time to write the letter, and I wouldn't take it personally if they submit it the day before the deadline, because chances are that they are very busy people.
Awesome, thank you. And then the very last thing that I'll talk about is the transcript, which you will also need for your application. Do note that we only require an unofficial transcript, so don't worry about having to pay or waiting to order an official one. You can just get a free unofficial one from your student web portal. Christian or Gabby, do you guys have any tips on the transcript? On how to maybe obtain?
Yeah, so for me, my college had it as just like a printed PDF version of it. So I just downloaded that and attached that to my application. It was very easy to do.
Yeah, and if for some reason your university doesn't have like a downloadable unofficial transcript, you can take like a screenshot of your computer screen of the unofficial one and submit that. That's what I did. And just so that you're not using your phone to take a picture of the screen, if you have a Windows computer, just go to the search prompt when you click the Windows icon at the bottom and just type snipping tool. And that thing is going to change your life, trust me.
Thank you. Yeah, so if you do use a screenshot for your transcript, please make sure that you do it on your computer and that the final result is something that you can actually read. We have had some students try to take a picture of their transcript from their computer, and it's very blurry and unable to read. So if reviewers do have a hard time reading your transcript, they will not accept it. So just make sure that however you obtain it, that it's readable and clear for the reviewers to read. I think the last thing I wanted to talk about was just that you do have to be a current SACNAS member before applying for the application. So on our website for the travel scholarship page, you'll see a link to make sure that you have your membership updated. And then the second thing is that most of our funding currently is for students interested in biomedical and behavioral research. But we are also accepting students who are in interdisciplinary sciences. So for example, we accept students who are in chemistry, who are maybe studying like biochemistry, computer science students who are maybe working on models that have biomedical applications, applied mathematics, and also like biomedical engineering. So if these are your primary disciplines, make sure to put those in the discipline field, and then do talk about your like biomedical or behavioral research interest in the statement of purpose. And yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up the travel scholarships.
Just to be super clear,
Mm-hmm.
should you still apply at this point if you are not? So I'm in geoscience.
Uh-huh.
Should other students in geoscience still apply for a travel scholarship?
You could, but
knowing that it's going to be a tough field.
Yeah, at this point we don't currently have funding for, like, say, geoscience. So hopefully if we do have more funding by the time the summer application comes around, then I would maybe encourage you to wait until the summer application, because sometimes we do have some sponsors that come in like last minute and do offer funds for travel scholarships that are not just restricted to students interested in biomedical or behavioral research.
Great, thanks. Just want to make that clear for
Mhm.
when people watch later on.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Eric, Gabi, and Katarina. And Eric, Christian, and Gabi. So now we'll switch over to focus on the research presentation aspect of this hangout. Katarina, do you want to start telling us about the research presentations?
Yeah, sure. I hope I can answer some of your questions. So, as you know, research presentations are one of the most vital aspects of the conference, focused solely on your growth as scientific professionals. Come to 2016 SACNAS and share your research to mentoring scientists, judges, and other students in your field. This year, undergraduate, graduate, and postbac students have an opportunity to do poster presentations, and graduate students and postdoctoral professionals have an opportunity to give oral presentations. We offer 2 application periods, spring and summer. The deadlines are identical to travel scholarships. So spring period, the deadline is approaching right around the corner, May 13. In the spring, we do accept applications for poster and oral presentations. And the purpose of the summer application period is to accommodate undergraduate students participating in a summer research program. Keep in mind that you cannot reapply in the summer if you submitted a spring application that was not approved. But if you miss the spring application, we will consider your summer application. However, applicants from students in a summer program will receive priority. So, how to apply if you have a question? Visit our conference website, 2016sacnas.org. At the menu, please choose Research Presentations tab. There you will be able to learn to read guidelines, selection criteria, frequently asked questions, and the eligibility. In order for you to apply, you have to be a SACNAS member and also have the following information: title of your research, abstract text, 250 words maximum, the contact information of your home institution, college dean, and department chair, and full names and degrees of all the authors contributed to your research. For the abstract text, we are looking for the following components: introduction, hypothesis, methods, results, and conclusion. Keep in mind, when you start your application and right before it asks you to submit your to enter your abstract text, you will be able to view samples of bad and good abstracts with the comments, so you can get a sense. Also, I encourage you to start the application as soon as possible. After submitting it, you can always go back and edit your answers. So that way you can get familiarized with the steps we have in the process. Gabi, I have a question to you. Can you share with your experience who helped you and how long did it take you to develop your abstract?
Sure. So I first sent my abstract to my main advisor, my PI. I wrote it first as best as I could and then got his feedback on it. And so we went through, I think it was about 5 rounds of revision. And I also sent it to a couple of my peers in the summer program so that I could get their opinion on it as people who were outside of the geoscience field, just to make sure it was clear to anyone reading it and not just my research advisor who knew exactly what I was talking about anyway. So it took, I would say, about a week to go through all of those revisions all together. But I feel like at the end of it, it was a much better finished product. So I was happy to go through it, even though at the time I was a little bit frustrated to have to keep revising it. But it's worth doing.
Thank you. That's great. Many students are concerned that the deadlines are approaching and they don't have the results. So Christian, what would your advice be to students that haven't obtained their results but the deadlines right around the corner?
Yeah, sure. Sorry if it sounds a little weird, the washers in the back. So my first tip is don't freak out. It's a lot more common than you would think. And don't be afraid of stating that your results are currently preliminary. I mean, if you have any. And if you don't, then write that part of your abstract stating how your data analysis is pending. And give your educated guess on what you expect your results to look like and how they will support or not support your hypothesis. So a final tip is to end the abstract with some solid future directions. You know, if it looks a little too empty because you don't have results, then you can add some meat by speculating in an educated way how are you going to move the research forward regardless of how results are going to look like. Yeah.
Thank you, Christian.
All right, so then I guess we'll move forward to the section. Gabi and Christian, do you want to just kind of explain your overall conference experience, what it was like presenting your research, and then going to the conference on a travel scholarship?
Sure, I can go first unless Christian's... Yeah, okay, so I'll start. I would just say that my experience going to the conference was really, really life-changing, that it really impacted how I see myself as a scientist and also how I see sort of the field in general of academia. That it was the first time that I had seen so many Latino scientists in one place, and I learned a lot more about Native American culture just being in one big conference room and talking to my peers who were Native American, and that was something that, coming from a small school in Maine, that I didn't really have an exposure to before that. So other than learning about science, which was a big part of my experience, I got so much cultural education and so much solidarity in some ways. Like, it sounds kind of silly to say, but it was really cool to see that that I wasn't alone in being a scientist whose grandparents didn't go to college or any other aspect of your experience. So I would highly, highly recommend it. I said in the other hangout, make sure you bring comfortable shoes. I spent the whole time on my feet. I made great friends, and I really recommend attending to anyone who's even considering that maybe that's a good option for you. Especially being on the travel scholarship. I had a roommate who was also on a travel scholarship, and we were all in one area of the hotel, so even once the official conference programming was over, we were able to spend time together and get to know each other better. So it was overall an awesome experience, and I'm hoping to return this fall. Hopefully you'll see me in Long Beach.
Okay, so attending SACNAS for me was particularly memorable because it was the first research conference I ever attended, and I think that it set a really nice precedent for future conference I attended by helping me get over, public speaking fears, which is something that takes a bunch of practice. It also gave me a little affirmation that I really actually knew what I was talking about in my research, because if you're not exposed to these, chances to prove yourself, you're gonna start feeling overwhelmed by the feeling of imposter syndrome. And also there's the whole social aspect. You're going to have fun exploring the city after the events of the day, of course, with other, like-minded scientists who also happen to be your age. And it really gave me the impression that while we may be a minority in campus, there are, in fact, a lot of us out there once we come together. And like Abby said, it is really empowering to realize that that's the truth. So, yeah, apply, do it, and I promise you won't regret it.
Christian, how did you hear about SACNAS or the SACNAS conference?
So I was in the MARC program at UC Berkeley, which is Minority Access to Research Careers, and Corey Welch actually was the program coordinator, and he told us about SACNAS and encouraged us to apply for the travel award. Yeah, this is when I
And
was a junior. Yeah.
was this your first conference, or had you
Yeah, it
attended
was my
any previous?
first research conference ever. Like, I don't travel a lot, so this was
Yeah.
it was mind blowing. Even not just from a research aspect, but also culturally. And I got out of California for a bit, so that was cool.
Nice. Gabby, same question. Was this, or how did you first hear about the SACNAS conference, and was it your first conference you attended?
Yeah, so I first heard about it from my program as well. So the SMART program is Summer Multicultural Access to Research Training. I hope I got that right, but it's at CU Boulder. And that was a great program. And they really early on encouraged us to become members of SACNAS. And that was my first time ever even hearing that there was a society with enough members that could exist. And I couldn't even imagine the size of the organization and the conference and the whole thing. Like my mind was totally blown when I found out that this even existed. And it was I think it was my second research conference, but it was my first ever broad conference, so not just in the geosciences. So it was really great to get to learn more about biomedical science and see all these new techniques that I'd never heard of before, and also be sitting next to people at dinner who were studying things that were entirely different from what I was doing. So that part was really cool too, the interdisciplinary aspect.
Awesome. And were you able to interact with any professionals? Could you talk about that experience?
Sure. I talked to a lot of professors who were at schools that are a lot bigger than my undergrad school. I went to Bowdoin College in Maine, which has just under 2,000 students. So getting to talk to professors who are at much bigger departments and much bigger schools overall was really interesting to hear about their perspective and what their job is like, because I've only ever seen liberal arts professors before I got to grad school. So it was really cool to hear about other possible career paths for myself, but also to understand better what my peers were learning from at bigger schools. So that was great.
And was it difficult to approach the professors?
No, not at all. They were super nice. They were like the ones sitting next to me and asking me what I was doing, and they were the first ones to talk to me. So yeah, that part was also really mind-blowing that was even possible. It was really cool.
Nice. How about you, Christian? How was your experience interacting with professionals?
Yeah, it was really cool because you get that chance to, you give them a chance to be candid because you're not talking to them inside of the university setting, so they give you a little more realistic view of how their career is, the good and the bad. And I think it also helps you get over, the sort of intimidation you might feel by talking to people in this sorts of positions. Like you just you build your confidence and you're able to approach these people easier and easier after this. And I would also say that not only do you meet people within academia as professors, but also in places like the exhibition hall, you get to actually talk to professionals from governmental agencies who are looking to recruit people. And I mean, if they see you walking around with a travel award tag on your name tag, then they're gonna pay extra attention to you. I would say that it's great not only for networking, but like I said earlier, it helps you get over the whole intimidation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christian and Gabi. Yeah, I mean, just they're humans too, so that's really great. Thank you for sharing your experience. Do they need to be a SACNAS member at the time of applying for a travel scholarship? Eric, could you help answer that question?
Yeah, so you do need to have a current SACNAS membership to be considered for an award. So if you have already completed your application, you can still go back to our travel scholarship page, and under the eligibility, you'll see the SACNAS membership link. So make sure that by the time the deadline comes around that your membership is current, because yes, you do need to be a member, not only for travel scholarships, but also for research presentations.
Who wouldn't want to be a SACNAS member?
Yes, that's very true. Gabi, what was your favorite, if you could just pick one thing, your favorite thing from the conference? I know that's really hard because probably a million different things, but the one
Yeah.
thing that stands out in your mind.
I think a big part of it was when I was presenting my research and people came up to me and really treated me like an expert on my research. And they didn't care that I was an undergrad, they didn't care it was a summer project. People really treated me with respect. And as a colleague and as an undergrad, I think I was 20 years old to have professors and postdocs and grad students coming up to me and treating me with that kind of respect was really, it was crazy to me. It was great, but it was crazy. And I think, sort of like what Christian was saying, it was great for building up my confidence and for understanding that I can succeed in this field or whatever it is that I choose to do, that people do understand that, everyone starts somewhere, and they still treated me with that kind of respect. So that was really cool. I actually did get to present my poster in Spanish to one of the people who came up to see it, so that was cool too, to flex some of my bilingual skills. I think it's pretty unique to SACNAS, at least. So that was cool too.
Thank you. Yeah, and Christian, asked the same question to you. What
Yeah,
was your takeaway? What was most valuable?
I'm trying to rack my memory up for memories. But I would agree with Gabi in the sense that you're finally, even if it's just temporarily, you're taking it a little more seriously than usual uh, as an undergraduate, and I think that in itself is very empowering. And also, we were talking about this earlier, or Gabi was, but I come from Southern California. I am not exposed at all to Native American culture or people, and I think that I gained a lot from being exposed not only, to their culture, but also to them scientifically. And I think it gave me a sort of awareness that I was severely lacking, because sometimes we might think that, oh, we're the minorities, but someone else is going to have an even tougher time with that. And unfortunately, like they do have it worse. So yeah, I would say that increasing that awareness really did help. In my life right now. Um, yeah, that's my most memorable takeaway. Cultural exposure.
And being a part of the Sacnista familia and that
Yes.
sense of community.
Yeah, yeah, and after the conference, it was cool to go back and realize that there's a chapter, or there was a chapter. I think it's still there over at UC Berkeley, and attending their meetings and all that, and realizing that you're not the only one.
Yeah, once I started at MIT, I actually found another Secnista who was here in the biological engineering department. So I reached out to her and we had coffee one day. So the connections stay with you even from afar. A couple questions left over from the other Q&A, so maybe we can go through a couple of those just to have them addressed in the recording. So one of them that I saw was whether there's any benefit to applying in the spring versus the summer. I didn't know the answer to that. Sort of like are they weighted differently, that kind of thing.
And I think it was about travel scholarships.
Yeah, so for travel scholarships, ideally the summer is focused for more students doing like undergraduate research. So we kind of tried to give them priority in the summer. But if there are other students who aren't necessarily doing undergraduate research in the summer, but just missed the spring deadline, they still can apply during the summer. So another thing that's somewhat similar to that I think a question that I saw was first-time awardees versus received the travel scholarship before. So if you have received a travel scholarship from us before, you still are eligible to apply. We do give priority again to the first-time attendees who are presenting, and then second in line is just general first-time attendees, and then we do also have funding for students who have previously attended our conference on the travel scholarships. And the reason we do that is because we hope that those returning students can then start mentoring those first-time attendees, and again, just keep growing their scientific knowledge as well as their networking skills as well. So yeah, we do offer for students who have previously been awarded, as well as postdocs.
And Eric, I'm reading the question from our previous hangout, and they are asking for. I would like to know what the evaluation criteria for the student travel awards. Bridget from our EU program coordinator with Cal State Monterey Bay.
Okay, so yeah, our main criteria at this point is like make sure that you're eligible, looking at the eligibility on our website. And the major factor now is just the funding aspect. So most of our funding, again, is for applicants interested in biomedical and behavioral science. But again, I really want to emphasize that we do accept students who are essentially like, they may be like a chemistry students, but if they're like doing research or even interested in doing research with what they're currently doing and like a biomedical or behavioral research stuff, then they would be eligible to apply.
And there are some great guides on the SACNAS website for, I think, for fundraising and for looking at funding other than the travel scholarship, right? Are those still up?
Yeah, and I think we will provide more information on that as well, making sure that we have them updated for this year.
So if you, I'm just thinking about my geoscience people out there, so if you're feeling like you're not going to get a travel scholarship, definitely still apply to do your research application or research presentation, and then hopefully you'll find funding another way.
Yeah, and if you are a geoscience student or any other discipline that's maybe doesn't have any interest in biomedical or behavior, like please keep checking our website, because if we do have any additional funding come up, we will have we'll post the updates on our travel scholarship page, and also make sure that you subscribe to our mailing list if you currently aren't on there. So I believe if you go to SACNAS.org, and then I think if you hit the, let me double check real quick, make sure I give you the correct instructions. So yeah, if you're on the SACNAS.org, if you go to the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a link to sign up for our emailing list. So we'll make sure to send out email updates for things such as new funding resources or any updates on deadlines or things like that.
Also, just to add in, if for whatever reason you can't acquire travel funds through SACNAS, chances are that your university or college has something that's similar to a student opportunity fund that you essentially write what would look like a lot like the SACNAS application, but it's up to the university, and it's kind of like trying to win a little grant. And usually, I mean, if you explain what SACNAS is, I think your chances of getting some of that money are pretty high. Also, something that I want to add in, if you attend the conference and you meet anyone that you sat next to at a dinner table, like I'm talking about professionals, or maybe you saw at a booth that they were gracious enough to give you like their business card or something, I really recommend that you don't forget to email them after the conference. And I mean, not necessarily to like suck up or something, but like at least mention like, hey, thanks a lot for taking the minute or two to get to know who I am, and like be willing to give you my card or be willing to give me your card. And I really think that goes a long way, because usually people are meeting a lot of people at these conferences, and unless you do something like this, it's very easy to forget, or in the sea of faces that people see. So yeah, I recommend that you touch base with anyone you meet that gives you an email like a week or two after the conference to keep the memory fresh.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Christian. So back to your first point, Christian, about if you know that you're not eligible and you're trying to look for alternative funding sources, we do have the statement of purpose prompt and questions that your letter of recommender should address on our guidelines page. So you'll find all of those specific questions on there. And like Christian was mentioning, if you do decide to like apply through your university, Usually they do have like proposals that are very similar to the travel scholarship application, so you can use our questions and our topics kind of to help you come up with those proposals.
Once you say, oh yes, we want you to come and present your poster,
Oh.
how long do they have to decide if they can come or not come?
Yeah, so they will have 2 weeks to accept their presentation, and they will receive an email with the link provided where they have to go and accept that presentation or decline their attendance. And right after that, the final confirmation of their presentation would be registration. Mm-hmm.
Great. And then I think, so we do have, I'm looking at more questions. I don't think we answered this already, but I was wondering if you could, SACNAS looks for in a student's travel scholarship application.
So yeah, just make sure, I think Christian and Gabi hit on these points. It's essentially based on your statement of purpose and your letter of recommendation. Those are really the 2 major components that reviewers are looking for. So just making sure that you address all of the topics that are on the guideline, and then as well as your recommender addressing the points on there. And I think Christian and Gabi did a really good job of providing tips on what specifically to include.
Yeah, general writing tip. Be direct, use your active voice, and always assume people don't have your attention when they're reading. So the easier you make it for the reader, the more they'll absorb.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
Great. So I think we can wrap up now. Again, we have collected in the previous link that we had that we were not able to get working. But we have collected your questions, and we will answer all of them through social media, and you can also email us your questions at travel scholarships at SACNAS.org and presentations at SACNAS.org and 2016SACNAS.org. Also, go there for more resources, and if you have questions about research, presentations, and travel scholarships. And then again, we're on social, so just use the hashtag SACNAS2016, and we will do our very best to answer your question as soon as we can. So thank you for joining our first Hangout, and I'm sure that the next one we will have ironed out the kinks, and it will start promptly when we say it will start. But I think we still got a lot of great insights and knowledge. Thank you so much, Eric, Katarina, Gabi, and Christian for sharing the tips and advice for students and your experience. So.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank
Best of luck,
you.
everyone.
Okay, bye.
Bye.